So, hello everyone. Welcome to Spiritism at Noon by the Spiritist Group of New York. Today we are going to be reading and discussing from the book Living Spring by Chico Xavier, written by the Spirit Emmanuel. And those lessons that Emmanuel brings to us, they are always very enlightening. And today we are going to read from lesson 70 that it talks about solitude. So as always, I'm going to be reading a little bit and then we will be discussing. So solitude. Why? What crime has he committed? Asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, crucify him. Matthew 27:23. While you elevate yourself up the mount in the performance of your duty, you experience the solitude of the summit, and an immeasurable sadness compresses your sensitive soul. Where are the ones who smiled with you in the vernal park of your first youth? Where are the hearts that sought your comfort in the hours of fantasy? Where lie those who shared with you the bread and dream in the cheerful adventures of the beginning? They remained there for sure. They stayed in the valley, flying in a narrow circle in the manner of golden butterflies, which break apart at the first contact of the smallest flame of light that opens before them. Around you, the light, but also the silence. Within you, the happiness of knowing, but also the pain of others' incomprehension. Your voice screams without echo, and your yearning grows in vain. Yet, if you rise spiritually, what ears could hear you in the great distance? And what a heat hungry heart of the valley would come to understand readily your high ideals? You cry, suffer, and reflect. But what kind of rebirth will not be painful? To free itself, the bird destroys the eggshell cradle where it formed itself, and to produce the seeds suffers the laceration in the unknown pit. Solitude with work to favor the neighbor generates greatness. The rock that sustains the plains lives in isolation as the sun, which feeds the whole world, shines on its own. Never tire of learning the science of elevation. Remember the Lord who scaled the Calvary with the shoulders wounded by the cross. No one followed him in the ignominious death except two criminals, constrained to be punished in obedience to justice. Remember him and go on. Do not list the good works you have already done. Trust in the eternal good that awaits you. Do not wait for the others in the march of sacrifice and aggrandizement. Do not forget that for the cause of the ministry of redemption that he wielded for all creatures, the divine friend of man not only lived, fought, and suffered, but he was also persecuted and crucified. So I thought it was better to read everything because from Emmanuel's lesson, it's better not to break. Now we can break in terms of, commenting this. Um, Before I start saying anything, would anyone like to say something, your impressions? Or
Yeah,
what was your take from it?
it's two hands because I totally understand the how I feel sometimes alone, so different the others' opinions. And then in the past, I start to talk about or share my feelings, my ideas, and my opinions. And now I prefer sometimes to be quiet and wait the others like find or discussing or think like things. This is one hand. But the other hand, what might go if I can feel so far away for these people close to me that I know they need my prayers, my good thoughts, my help in general.
Mm. Yeah, it's a good point where you started, because I think this is exactly the example
Mm,
that Emmanuel is bringing about Jesus here. He's
mm.
saying that he came to the world, right? He came to the world and he lived among us. He shared his knowledge, he gave his teachings. So it was not he that abandoned us, right? Circumstances led him to go and be condemned and crucified. And in this journey, what I think Emmanuel is telling us here is a journey that we normally going to have to track by ourselves. And
I
so, yes, go ahead.
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking, as we are reading, particularly the time about Jesus in his solitude, that sometimes we mix solitude with loneliness, and it's very different, right? So, and it kind of, how can I explain that? Is it when we are good with ourselves, and I guess that's exactly what Jesus did, right? He needed those moments of solitude where he could, I mean, this is always speculation, right? So he could put regroup, right? So he could go out to the public again. And I think that we mix the solitude with loneliness all the time, and we don't observe or take advantage of the time that we are alone in a solitude way, and we mix it with loneliness. So we're sad, we're depressed and all that, instead of regrouping and taking advantage of that time for us to organize our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions and everything. So I think that there was a phrase which I can't remember exactly which one it was, and it talks about that, the solitude, for you to take, advantage of that. And I thought that was like striking.
Yeah, it went deep there, Andrea. Because I mean, from what you were saying and here reflecting upon that, and of course here we are talking about words, right? And words that are sometimes too small to be able to encompass what we want them to convey to us in terms of the message. But the way you were saying, I'm not saying that it's that, but we could understand loneliness as, more of a physical nature, right? I'm alone. There is no one next to me. I would like to have some company. Uh, and the solitude is more something of the soul, of the inner self. Because in this example, in this teaching that Emmanuel is talking about, it's not much about Jesus having to track the path to the Calvary by himself, and few of his disciples follow him, and few of the people that a week before were cheering him were nowhere to be found. uh, but it is that state of the soul that you have reached certain understanding through your reflections, through the moments of solitude that others have not. And this is the point here. This is where he is suffering here.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And I think that sometimes if you don't go through that solitude, those moments for you to reflect,
mhm,
um, you will not assimilate everything in a way that will help you to move forward, right? It's almost like, I'm in HR and let's say sometimes we have an accident, right? An employee has an accident. So after the tumultuous time of the accident, we meet to discuss what happened at the accident, what we can do better in all this. So it's a little calmer, of course. So I think it's always like that. Like after you go through something, and then if you have that moment of solitude, you can go back and say, this happened. Am I, how am I going to react to something like this in the future? What did I learn about it? What was the teaching behind it? All of those things that if you just continue going, if you don't have that moment of solitude, will you can you assimilate everything,
mhm. Yeah, I think it's what some of the Eastern philosophies they talk about, the need to go into meditation, to be mindful about certain things, because this is what Emmanuel is saying here. Where were the others? They were in their narrow circle, living like golden butterflies, like nothing happened. So there is something huge happening, right? It's the crucifixion of Jesus. And they just say, and even they doubt themselves, because I'm sure that many of the followers that were very enthusiastic about Jesus and his messages and the healings and all that, when they saw him being condemned, they thought, well, maybe it was not exactly like this. How people change their opinions and change sides so easily. But I think the main point here that Emmanuel is trying to bring to us is actually, for us to remember that in terms of spiritual involvement, because he's using this, the mount of the Calvary, right? To go to the summit. He's using this metaphorically speaking. So for us to rise into a certain direction, it's a lonely journey. It's a journey of solitude, because each one of us will be in a different stage. There is maybe, we've been together for quite some time, right? And we know a lot of things already, when we all been doing our best to be better. But even then, of course, we are different. And in up to what is my limit here? Okay, I can go up to this point, but from that point on, it's just too much for the moment. You see, so even when we find people that commune of our ideas and ideals, not necessarily they are in the same pace as we are. And but I think that here, uh, uh, from our part, from the ones that are, really with a name to go through the summit, right? We have to have more understanding toward the others that are delaying, procrastinating. We've been there already, right? We've been there already. People would be mounting up, and we would be looking, well, maybe next time. And then, this is the next time for us. This is the next opportunity for us. So I think it's is important for us to understand that. And like you were saying, Sonia, we want people that are, in our inner circles, to understand us, and even if it is to say, I validate your ideals, but I'm still not ready for them. And it's hard because we will not find people saying that as well, because um, if they say that, they have to admit to themselves that, well, I know this is the truth, but I still cannot go into this path, into this journey. And here, like it says, it's not a matter of, be listing all the good works that you have already done. It's not about that, right? As well, it's just about understanding that the uh it's a march that we probably will go alone. Like it says, do not wait for the others in the march of sacrifice and aggrandizement. Are we being selfish by doing that? Absolutely not. We are being conscious and not expecting from people what they cannot do yet. And remembering that not so long ago we were in that position, and we still have a long way to go. So there are many that are more advanced than us that are looking at us and say, oh my God, they're still there, right?
Exactly. This is why I mentioned about this, because it was a long way to arrive today, and I feel myself different inside.
Mhm.
My behavior, my thoughts, my feeling, and more than 25 years then I here studying spiritism, read lessons every week and
Mhm.
try to apply in my own life, then it's a way. But and then when I mention feel alone, sometimes because people close to me have had the same opportunity to learn,
Mhm.
and many of them started reading the gospel, and but not able to, it's not to understand but to apply it in their lives. Every time when challenger arrive and face the eyes, it's more difficult time to apply all the knowledge I understand, but it's exactly when I need to practice this. And then this weekend I have some situation, and I was upset about all that situation, and then I start to pray for that person to understand better. Please, Jesus, touch her soul. And then I start to pray, and then it's amazing because how to imagine replace my situation not happy than I was, and then I feel serenity when I start to pray to that difficult person. And then Monday she called me and changing behavior. Then I say, oh my goodness, how fast was the results of this prayer, or this kind of energy I send for this person. And then, okay, okay, then I feel hope.
Yeah.
Then this is exactly the power, the pray. this kind of energy, the behavior. That's why, okay, to be alone, this is my way. I need to improve myself, but also I cannot forget to spread these seeds, to try to share with others what I've been learning here.
Yeah. You made me think about so many things, Sonia. Uh, one of them is I think it's sometimes, I myself, I, I, I see people that I say, well, they do not have this knowledge. They are not interested in pursuing their spiritual nature, but they are good people. At least they are good people. So it doesn't mean that they are not good people. But having said that, can you imagine what they could be if they would add to their already good nature more understanding and enlightenment? And another point is, I think we also, one of our main goals is to serve as examples. And because then again, it's not because people are not doing what we are doing around us that they are not paying attention. So they are paying attention and they need somehow this, lighthouse to illuminate their journey sometimes. So, but you see, it's a lonely journey because uh, we we cannot force people to be in the same page as we are, to validate our work, our ideas. On the contrary, many times what we hear is people saying, oh, stop wasting your time with those things. Listen, you pray and you are suffering like, a horse or whatever, or you pray and your family is still a mess. You pray and you still are without a job, you pray and you see, and one thing means they are paying attention, but they use those opportunities to tease us and to say it's no point. But and so I think it's more difficult. It's more difficult for us because not only we don't have people to cheer us up, but most of them will say, don't waste your time with that. And this is what is hard because then you are lacking understanding, and this is why the journey is alone. The journey is that of sacrifice. The journey is that of looking around, looking in the world, and seeing so many things that should be happening, and so many people going, ways that they shouldn't be doing this kind of, or getting into this kind of behavior. So this is why it's so hard. And we are there feeling lonely, right? Feeling lonely, but understanding that it's not for us to stop our march. We should not stop our march. But it's a march without the glory of the world.
Yeah.
We will
For
not.
me, it hit so close to home because, as you both know, I just moved to this little place outside of Atlanta and everything, and I am super lonely, right? But I have a goal, right? I need to pay my student loan for my second master's, and then I'll be free again. So I need to reflect that the solitude is happening for a reason, not the loneliness,
Mhm.
right? So I have an opportunity. First of all, the market's not good and I got a job. So hey, right? Let's not forget. I cannot forget the main goal that God was there. He did help me, right? So, and then at the moments I go home after work and it's loneliness because my friends are all in New York, everybody, what is that solitude? Am I using this the best way I can? Um, it's like you said, I cannot give up the march because the march is here. And if I don't walk, there will be someone behind me and it's going to go over me. And it will, right? So I need to keep marching. So I think that, today the lecture hit home pretty hard. So together we go. Yeah.
And together we go, even if, having to deal with our own things and ordeals, and challenges. Um, but you see, it's I like that the spirits do not sugarcoat uh, the journey. Okay,
Mm.
it was never like that. I remember I always liked to read about the ancient people, especially the Egyptians and Greek, but Egyptians, how they had the different levels of knowledge, and they had to go to the initiation, and those were hard, And I mean, we are going through our initiation into, getting there. When we will study Buddha as well. Oh, okay, in theory I may know what nirvana is, but to get to there, it requires a lot of things. It requires a lot of, giving up, or, shedding the layers that you do not need. And so it is the same thing. Of course, some philosophies, religions, they go through with different vocabulary, etc. But at the end of the day, is everything is the same. Everyone is trying to take you to the pinnacle of life. In this case, we are talking about, real life, eternal life, immortal life. But and I think it is good for us to know that, to understand that, because we will not feel like we are the only ones that are going through this process. And there is even Jesus. This is what Emmanuel is talking about here. Even Jesus had to go through that. When the moment came, he had to face that all alone. And this all alone in the circumstances, but being in a solitude, in an inner solitude as well, for not being understood.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, in that show, with all this free time I have now,
Yeah.
because I don't have a TV. I haven't had a TV for like 30 years. So I watch things on my iPad and whatnot. And I was thinking, maybe it's time to get a TV because now I have plenty of time. But anyway, I started watching that movie or that TV series.
Chosen.
Sorry?
Chosen.
Chosen, yes, yes, which I had never seen. And there was a scene the other day that I saw, and I'm still in the very beginning, that Jesus actually says he needs to leave because he's preparing a sermon or something. And I was thinking that, I mean, we all know about how much work that spirit had to do to come down to our sphere, right? Like in our knowledge. And I'm thinking he must have needed those moments all the time just to tolerate being in our environment. I mean, I keep thinking the people around him at that time, and I don't know if the show is good or not. I'm not judging that, but it's showing these moments that I'm sure for us as a spiritist is a completely different meaning than from other people who is watching. And I keep thinking, my goodness, he did this all the time, and he faced the whole thing, and he was crucifying and all that, and I'm here complaining about being lonely. He's like bang, slapping your face, like, wake up for reality, Andrea.
Yeah. Sorry. And when you were talking about, I was thinking, not only that, but vocabulary as well. Can you imagine? He had let's see, today we having to talk to about technological advancements, robotic surgery, AI to native people that only know hunt and fishing.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
not even with the equipment that we use, people you use nowadays, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, in order to be able to accommodate his words in a way that we would be capable of understanding, I think that that interpretation when he says, "Let the children come to me," the children, we were the children. And we were thinking so much of ourselves, but we couldn't understand what Jesus was saying, even if he put it in such simple words. He used the parables that were the common way of communicating or conveying ideas at that time. But it's still, we are before a mystery, because it's so much more. And we see today, 2000 years more past, how much we can understand now more about Jesus' words. But this is the path. And at the same time, I think that Emmanuel tells us here about this solitude. He's talking about the solitude of, like, collecting ourselves, of not being that much worried about the applause of the world that do not value what you do. I don't understand your ideals, your art. So how can you want me to appreciate something that I do not understand? It's not in my line of interest yet. But at the same time, we know that in truth we are not alone. We have those that are ahead of us, and Jesus himself. So they're waiting at the cross line, right? When we will finally arrive. But it has to be our own effort. It is a marathon. It is a marathon. Sometimes you feel, I'm not going to be able to get it there. Again, and I like this idea of a marathon, because it's not about being the first, the second, the third to cross the line. It's about finishing it. And this is what we are going to be trying. I mean, not trying, we are going to do it, succeeding in doing. It can take longer or shorter, depends on us under having really this focus. No, this is my path, this is my journey, and this is where I'm going to be committed. And always remembering, even when we think that we are doing nothing, it seems there is nothing. I want to help my loved ones and this and that. They are paying attention. And it will be example for them always. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Any more comments or questions? All right, that was very nice. Thank you, Sonia, for bringing to us this lesson today. And yeah, I like when we improvise as well, and because we may think that we are improvising, but not really, right? Okay, so stop recording.